Hello, you guys, and welcome back to Hot Girls Eat Carbs. I am so glad you're here, whether you're out walking, getting ready for the day, or winding down at night. This is your time. Just us girls talking it out. I'm your host, Brittany McChrystal, and this is your safe space of the internet where we talk all things wellness, self-love, and sustainable weight loss. Today we're going deep in on something, and this is actually something that I've never really spoken about before, which is binge eating. Not just what it looks like, but why it happens in the first place. Because for years I thought that I just had no willpower and I'd be good all week, and then one binge would undo everything. And I'd wake up the next day full of guilt and shame and wondering what was wrong with me. And the truth is, binge eating isn't about lack of discipline. It's often your body's way of sending up flares, whether that's from restriction, undereating, emotional triggers, stress, or even certain habits that you don't even realize that are making things worse. And once I understood the why, I could finally change the how. In this episode, I'm sharing exactly what was driving my binges and how I stopped them for good, and how that shift helped me lose 25 kgs and rebuild my relationship with food. If you've ever felt trapped in that binge restrict cycle, I want you to know that you are not alone, and this is so common for so many people. And if you do love this episode, please follow the show, leave a review, or share it with somebody who needs to hear it. Okay, let's get into it. But before we start, I just want to share a little story. There were so many times that I'd overeat just to numb how I was feeling. But one of my biggest triggers was because I was so overly restrictive with myself that I wouldn't allow myself to have the foods that I loved. I'd spend all week being good, cutting out everything that I thought was bad. And then I'd have a few drinks, my guard would drop, and it was like my brain went, screw it, you've already ruined it now. Once that switch flipped, I was all in. I remember one night so vividly. I went to McDonald's, pretended I was on the phone with a friend, and ordered a whole family share box, just for me. I took it home, ate a heap of it, saved some for later, and then a couple of hours later I went back and finished the whole lot. And that just wasn't a one-off. I'd go to takeaway shops, order multiple meals just for myself, and eat until I felt sick. Then I'd tell myself, I'll start again on Monday. The other pattern was restriction. I'd spend the whole week saying no to everything I actually wanted to eat, and by Friday night, I'd sit down with a show on and tell myself I'll just have a little bit of something. But once I started, it was like I couldn't stop. My body didn't even register I was full because I had been so deprived all week. The worst part wasn't even the food. It was the shame, the guilt, feeling like there was something wrong with me. I'd wake up the next day and punish myself, skipping meals, doing hours on the Stairmaster, and trying to undo the damage. And this cycle went on for years. I felt completely stuck. Like no matter what I tried, binge eating was always just a part of my life. The moment things started to shift for me wasn't dramatic. It wasn't one big life-changing event. It was more like the slow, heavy realization that I couldn't keep doing this forever. I remember waking up one morning after another binge and thinking, I can't spend the rest of my life in this cycle. I was tired, not just physically from the food and the workouts I was using as a punishment, but mentally. It was exhausting to constantly swing between being so good and then completely losing control. I didn't want to spend my 20s obsessed with food, hating my body, and planning my life around what I could or could not eat. That is when I decided I needed to understand why I was binge eating. Not just to try and stop it, because every time I tried to just be more disciplined, it never worked. I'd white knuckle it for a bit and then I'd end up right back where I started. Once I started learning about what was actually happening in my body and my brain, the role restriction plays, and the way my blood sugar was crashing, the emotional triggers I was ignoring, it was like this light bulb went on. I realized it wasn't that I was broken or had no willpower. I was setting myself up to fail without even realizing it. The shift was the start of me not just stopping binge eating, but completely changing my relationship with food. And from there, the weight loss felt different. It wasn't about punishment anymore. Once I started learning about the psychology of binge eating, it made me so much more compassionate with myself because I realized my body wasn't failing me. It was actually just doing its job. When you restrict your calories too much, especially over several days, your body starts to produce more of a hormone called ghrelin, your hunger hormone. Ghrelin's job is to make you want to eat, and it doesn't whisper, it yells. At the same time, levels of leptin, your fullness hormone, drop, so you start getting those strong signals to stop eating. And on top of that, if you're skipping meals or eating very little, your blood sugar is probably dipping too low throughout the day. And when your blood sugar drops, your brain sees that as an emergency. It's fuel deprived. And when you push towards the fastest energy it can get, that's why in a binge we usually go for high carb, high fat foods like pizza, chocolate, ice cream. That stuff gives you a big dopamine hit, like a quick fix of energy. Then there's the dopamine loop, the highly palatable foods that light up the reward centers in your brain, giving you a temporary rush. That can create a feedback loop when your brain starts to crave those foods not just for energy, but for that feel-good hit over time. Binge eating can then become much more about chasing that reward as it is about hunger. And if stress is also in the mix, that's when cortisol, your stress hormone, comes into play. Cortisol can actually make you crave energy-dense foods, partly because your body thinks it needs a quick fuel to deal with whatever stress you're under. So if you're already restricting, already tired, and then you add some stress, it's like a perfect storm for a binge. After I had that realization, I started to really dig into why binge eating was happening for me. And I learned it usually comes down to a mix of 3 big things: physical triggers, emotional triggers, and habit triggers. Physical triggers. For me, this was the biggest one. I was constantly under-eating during the week, thinking I was being good. But what that really meant was my body was running on empty. When you restrict like that, your hunger hormones go through the roof, your blood sugars drop, and your brain starts screaming for high-energy, high-calorie foods. And it's not lack of willpower. That is your body trying to survive. Emotional triggers. Food was my comfort. If I was stressed, lonely, sad, or even bored, eating gave me this temporary sense of relief. And add alcohol into the mix, and my emotional guard was gone. Once my body was relaxed, all of the rules it had been holding onto that week went out the window. Habit triggers. This is where it becomes an automatic one. For me, Friday nights became binge night, without me even thinking about it. I'd trained my brain to accept that once the week was done, I'd reward myself with food. Even sitting on the couch watching Netflix became a cue to eat. Those patterns are powerful because your brain loves routine, even if it's a destructive one. When I understood that binge eating wasn't just about being strong enough to say no, it was a game changer. I could finally start fixing the actual problems instead of blaming myself. Once I understood those triggers, everything changed. Because instead of trying to just be better or be stricter, I started making changes that actually addressed the reasons I was binging in the first place. The first thing I did was I would make sure that I'd eat enough during the day. No more tiny breakfasts or skipping meals to save calories for later. I started building balanced meals with protein, carbs, fat, and fiber, the kind of meals that kept me satisfied and stopped those crazy blood sugar crashes. I also stopped putting food into good and bad boxes. The second you tell yourself you can't have something, your brain becomes obsessed with it. So instead of saying, I can't have chocolate, I learned how to include it in a way that worked for my goals. And that removed so much of the urgency around eating it all at once. I worked on breaking the all or nothing mindset. Before, if I had one cookie, I'd think, well, I've ruined it now. I may as well eat the whole packet. I had to reframe it. One snack doesn't undo all of my progress, and I don't need to turn it into a binge. For the emotional side, I started building a toolkit of other ways to cope. Sometimes that was going for a walk, calling a friend, journaling, or even just taking 5 deep breaths before deciding if I actually wanted food or if I was just trying to soothe something else. And the biggest shift of all, I stopped punishing myself after a binge. No more starving myself the next day, no more 2-hour cardio sessions to make up for it. That guilt and punishment cycle was actually making the binges worse. And letting go of that was hard, but it was the thing that finally gave me my freedom. And I want to leave you with 5 things that you can try next time you feel a binge coming on. These aren't about shaming yourself or forcing willpower. They're about helping your body and mind feel safe so the urge to binge naturally starts to fade. Number 1 is eat something balanced first. If you have been restricting or you haven't eaten much all day, your body is going to be screaming for quick energy. And that is not the time to rely on discipline. Your hunger hormones will win every time. But before you decide what to do next, have a balanced snack with protein, carbs, and healthy fats. This could be Greek yogurt with fruit and a sprinkle of nuts, or some eggs on toast with avocado. This helps stabilize your blood sugar, calm that primal hunger, and make it easier to make rational choices instead of an urgent one. Number 2, check in with yourself. Before you head to the kitchen or grab your phone to order food, take 30 seconds to pause and ask yourself, am I actually hungry right now, or am I feeling something else? Because sometimes it's real physical hunger, and that's okay. You need to eat. But often it's stress, boredom, loneliness, or even habit. If it's emotional, try to address the emotion before the food. That could look like going for a walk, having a shower, putting on music, journaling, or calling someone you trust. It doesn't mean that you can't still eat if you want to. It just means that you're giving yourself the chance to respond instead of react. Allow the food. One of the most powerful things I learned was giving myself the permission to eat something took its power away over me. If you are craving chocolate, have a few squares and move on. If you want pasta, make a portion and enjoy it mindfully. The key is to remove that forbidden energy around certain foods. When you know that you can have something at any time, you don't feel like you need to eat it all at once, just in case you can't have it tomorrow. Change your environment. Binges often happen on autopilot, sitting in your usual spot on the couch, scrolling on your phone, or standing in the kitchen after work. Simply changing your surroundings can interrupt the loop. Move to a different room, step outside for fresh air, tidy up a corner of your home, or put on a different playlist. It doesn't have to be complicated. You're just breaking the link between this environment and this behavior. No punishment if it happens. This is the most important one. If you do binge, it is not the end of the world, and it doesn't undo all your progress. The worst thing that you can do is punish yourself by skipping meals the next day, over-exercising, or going back into restriction mode, because that's what keeps the cycle alive. Instead, go straight back to your normal eating pattern, have your usual breakfast, drink your water, do your planned workout if you want to, and move on. Your worth isn't defined by one moment, one meal, or even one day. The quicker you can return to your balance, the faster binge loses its power. The more you practice these steps, the easier it becomes to interrupt the cycle. You're training your brain and your body to feel safe again around food. And that's when the binges naturally start to fade away. If you take anything away from today's episode, I hope it's this. Binge eating isn't about being weak or broken. It's your body doing what it's wired to do when it feels restricted, stressed, or underfueled. You don't have to spend the rest of your life stuck in that cycle. I know what it feels like to think that you'll never get out of it. I've been there, hiding food, feeling guilty, punishing myself the next day, and promising I'll start again on Monday. And now, years later, I can honestly say that food doesn't control me anymore. That change didn't come from being stricter. It came from understanding my triggers, fueling my body, and breaking those all or nothing rules I'd lived by for so long. So whether you try one step from today's toolkit or all of them, just start. Every time you pause, eat something balanced, check in with yourself, or give yourself permission to enjoy food without guilt, you're teaching your brain and body a new way to respond. And all of those things add up. If this episode resonated with you, please follow the podcast, leave a review, or share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you're ready to take this work deeper, to heal your relationship with food, and lose weight in a way that feels good and actually keep it off, you can always reach out to me through the link in the show notes for my one-on-one coaching or DM me on Instagram. You've got the time and you're doing better than you think, and you are so much more than your toughest days with food. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I will see you in the next episode.